on to go to the next big thing.
Yeah.
What's the next big thing? How are you? Who cares?
We both have scars by how our stuff's been turned into.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, for the thing? Oh, great.
Yes.
For the election?
I've been looking.
this governing board budget workshop for June 25th, 2023. Our first item on the agenda is the call to order and roll call.
2024.
25. Did I say 24?
You said 3.
You said 23.
Oh. 2025, June 25th, 2024. My apologies. I'm gonna blame my glasses. Been trying to get my glasses replaced for 2 months now. So, all right, roll call. Tony Henry.
Star Jensen.
Boyd Hardy.
We have a quorum. Item number 3 is the possible motion to move into a public hearing session per ASR 15-977B to discuss the fiscal year 2025 budgets. Is there a motion from the board?
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I will second it.
All right. All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
President Henry, members of the board, audience, we are gathered here today to review the work of Director Jones and her finance team in looking at revenues and expenditures for FY25. Good news, and you'll hear quite a bit of that throughout the presentation, as it's pretty similar to our February workshop where we made some predictions on enrollments and revenues. So there's nothing shocking, which we like. But feel free, this can be a very interactive conversation where you can ask questions at any time. We have all of our directors present who should be able to, at some level, answer questions. And that includes, because we're not in a board meeting, anybody can participate at any time. So I'll hand it over to Director Jones.
Hello. Do we, yeah. Okay. President Henry, members of the board. Oh, gosh. C10. Sound effects. Do I need to turn that off? Either. Okay.
Dialing up the level so that people can hear it, which,
Oh, is that,
Yeah.
okay.
that's what it is.
So our agenda today, we'll go over the state equalization, how that's calculated, and then our main funds, M&O, unrestricted capital, and our federal grants. Our classroom site fund, instructional improvement fund, and then a few of our larger expenditures, SSC, which is our maintenance and custodial contract, SFE, which will be the new contractors for our school lunch program. Transportation, utilities, going over the monthly board reports that we send you every month, and just a look at the year ahead. So first is state equalization. This is the state funding to school districts. It's calculated based on our weighted student count multiplied by the base level amount set by the state. So Arizona uses weights to calculate how much schools receive for each student. Students who cost more to educate have higher weights as a means to provide additional funding to the schools. And so for reference, like K through 8 might be weighted at 1.158, 9 through 12, 1.1268. For K3 for reading, that's a 1.45. And then our special education programs, they all carry many different weights up to like 7.947. And our weighted count for FY25 is estimated at 10,322. So for FY25, our base level amount is set at $4,914. And then I know it's kind of hard to see on like the calculations, but the transportation assistance is also added, and that's based on eligible students transported, daily route miles, state amount per mile, and number of instruction days, which I can go over a little bit more later in the transportation slide. And then all of those calculations together give us our revenue control limit, or like our budget expenditure limit. And that's the highlighted amount of $56,096,132.56. And then, we have been deemed by the state a non-compliant district with USFR. We kind of saw that coming, but we will have 3% withheld throughout until we can show that we're compliant. We are working really, really hard on that. That's our main focus. We're hopeful that that's going to happen soon. But that 3% is not calculated in this, and I'll show you later where I've taken it out. So this revenue control limit, or again, our budget expenditure limit of the 56 million, will then be divided here. So you'll see it at the top, where you see the little highlighted number up at the 56 million. This is allocated between M&O and unrestricted capital based on district needs. And I just based the allocation on previous years, and so I have about 98% of it going to M&O and only 2% going to unrestricted capital at this time. Then the next line is hard to see as well, but any additional district adjustments that are calculated by the state are also allocated to capital, and that's the, you can't see it and it's not highlighted, but it's about 3.8 million. So two numbers, there's a green arrow pointing to the 4.9 million, and we'll use that number later. I just wanted to highlight that that's how this part of the unrestricted capital was calculated. So then going back to the M&O allocation, let me find my spot. So then for M&O, we also have a carryover from last year, and that's the $11,024,851. And then we also reduced the amount by $1 million, about $1 million to transfer funds for our energy and water savings. And then this is where I've deducted the 3% for non-compliance. That's the $1.7 million. So all of that together comes down to that red circled amount of $652,348.
And we're gonna pause and talk
Okay.
about the 11 million for a minute, because that is a very unusual number, and anyone who's present or watching might think, oh my gosh, we had 11 million of unspent money. No. So we're being super cautious about that number. When I met with Director Jones and we were going over the budget, she uses state-provided budget worksheets. And a part of the state-provided budget worksheets are that there are built-in formulas. It's actually quite amazing.
It is.
So Director Jones is responsible for determining how much we spend on salaries and utilities and all of our expenditures. And she inputs those numbers, and then inputs our student enrollment based on how many kindergartners, how many K-3, how many high schoolers, how many sped-weighted category students. And then the formula sheet calculates it all and then gives us our RCL and our carryover. So the carryover of 11 million was automatically calculated based on our updated AFR submissions, I believe, and
the revised budget
The revised
for FY24.
budget. So if you recall, that's what we talked about in December, January, February, was that large calculation error from a few years ago. It is our assumption that this is reflecting that reversal of about $6.7 million to the positive. But we're not, you'll see that Director Jones doesn't suddenly go on a shopping spree or another raise spending spree, because we want to upload the budget, get the hard numbers, and then make cautious decisions about it.
Yes.
So
So it looks like a large number, but we're being conservative
there's not a lot of money.
in making sure that it's absolutely accurate before going and spending it.
When will we know when it's accurate?
Good question. So I think we're not fully reconciled for FY24 yet. We have found some discrepancies between our reconciliations, our revenues, and what the county says. We're working on it. I would love to see in the next few months here, by the time we're ready to make a budget revision in the fall, that we know and we're able to say, yes, we have it, or no, it's
We feel
some
we have,
other amount.
we feel we have the money. The county shows our money in their warrant accounts. Every time we speak with Superintendent File and Craig McKee at the county, they do talk about how we have very healthy accounts. I think I put that in an email. We don't struggle to pay payroll or anything like other districts. I just think we're feeling cautious because of what we've gone through since November.
Most definitely.
They gave it back, and we don't want to suddenly have the state say, well, wait a minute, we know we gave it to you. So that is a
Yeah.
fair question, and I think what we're doing is just being ultra conservative and responsible till all the i's are dotted.
So we're basing our budget currently this year on the 56 million, correct?
Yes, well, no, we
No.
budget the entire
Oh, you
11 million.
budgeted
It
the
is.
11 into it?
Yes, and that's how the budget sheets are figured out. So they're calculated in there for us. So it tells us that we're gonna have that $63 million, and that's what I have to allocate.
But we make sure our expenditures are at the 56 or below for
Okay.
now.
That's what
Yeah.
my next question
Yeah.
was gonna be, was like, what happens if we are wrong and it disappears, so.
We can still pay our bills.
Yeah.
'Cause
And then I just have one more quick final question, and I might have missed it. The 3%, what is it, the non-compliant 3% thing, is that money does that 1.7 million something we'll never get back, or once we become compliant, they give it back to us?
If we are compliant, within the FY '25 school year, we will get it back.
When is the FY '25, when does it
That's
start?
July 1st to June 30th of 2025. So it starts next week,
Right.
and then a
So we
year.
got the semester.
So we have a year,
To become
and
compliant.
I really hope it does not take us that long
To get
to get
100%
compliant here.
Perfect.
So we have that year. If we can show we're compliant, we will get it back. If not, we lose it.
Fair enough, all
And
right.
it,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so this is where we allocate that $63 million. And I don't know, well, you can see at least on the slides, we have this list of expenditures, and you'll see that there's numbers. You have 100 regular education, 1,000 instruction. If you go down about halfway, it says 200 and 300 special education, 1,000 instruction. It's a super intricate way of allocating all of our expenditures and categorizing all of our spending, but I just want to point out that most of our budget goes to instruction, and that's to pay teacher salaries and benefits, and then a good portion more goes to their support staff, their paras, principals, school staff. And then I've also added the 3% raise to all of our salaries. Our healthcare benefits did increase. Benefits also includes life insurance, disability, state retirement, things like that. And then most of these budgeted amounts were based on FY '24, the ending expenditures in FY '24, and then just increase for either the raises or the increase in benefits, but we can revise this again in a few months if needed. Okay. Give everybody a second. Okay, so then unrestricted capital, make sure I'm on the right slide. So here, there's a few numbers here. The first number that's pointed out is that $3.4 million. That is carryover from last year. And I'll say we're mimicking the same sentiment as the M&O carryover. We're being cautious and careful. This is what's calculated for us in the budget sheets. So that's what we show as being carried over. And then the next number, that 4.9, that's what was calculated on 2 slides back. So that gives us our bottom line for unrestricted capital of $8,300,000. $140 and oh, it was cut off and 70 something dollars. I can't read that. Oh, 75. I can
was
read
gonna say,
back
looks
there.
like a 5.
What you, anyone who's been watching board meetings or attending them, the term that's historically used is capital reserves or contingency fund. So the district, in the years that I've been here, the range, it's almost the rainy day or savings account, has been as low as a couple of million, 2 million. They get nervous if you all remember. If it's 2 million, we've had it up to 8 million. And it's usually in meet and confer meetings and other kinds of meetings, they're saying don't save it, spend it, put it into salaries. That's always a conversation. We want to find a really good balance there. But this year would be an example of where we were glad we had the reserve or the contingency fund. So we could afford them withholding a little bit. Yes, we'll get it back, but I just wanted to use that vocabulary for people that are familiar with board workshop budget meetings.
Okay. Then, so this would be how we allocate our unrestricted capital budget. Most of it goes to textbooks, instructional aids, and curriculum, and then that contingency that Dr. Dorner just mentioned is built into this budget as well.
So that 4 million, the curriculum department, it's about 1.3 million in books, and then there are some digital subscriptions.
They're all part of that one.
They're all part of the 1.3. So 1.3 is dedicated, and then the rest is more of a contingency. In the second column, library books, textbooks, under instruction, that 4.6. So when we talk about that 11, some of it is in there.
Because it has to be allocated somewhere. And unfortunately, they don't give us a category for contingency, which would be really nice.
I need to add a category.
I know.
Holding account.
Savings account.
Rainy day fund.
And then a couple other things that come out of unrestricted capital are White Fleet leases and other software, like our timekeeping software.
Copy machines on each campus.
Copy machine Synergy, which is our, thank you, student information systems, some things like that. Pausing for questions, but I'll keep going.
I do have a quick
Oh.
question, and it's just something
Okay.
very rudimentary. 1,000 instruction, 2,000 sport, are these numbers off to the far left, are they like just codes to represent something?
Yes, and whenever we categorize like any expenditure, there's a string of like 6 different numbers. It's a lot.
It's USFR compliant,
Yes.
it's every district in the state, and we start to learn 100 is M&O. The first 3 is.
001.
001. 001. The first 3 are the fundamentals, so 001, M&O.
Yes.
100,
So then 100 will be your next one, your program code. So is
and then
it,
your function.
yeah.
So, okay, kind of like an index in the library where it's
It really
3 digits,
is.
2 digits, 4 digits. and you-
Yeah.
Perfect,
Yeah.
okay.
It's a lot.
Perfect, okay, I was trying to figure that one out, thanks.
Yeah.
That's what's on your back wall or behind.
Yeah.
We actually have it, yeah, we have a
I have
whole.
a little booklet that I keep with me and I can flip through. I'm like, wait, I know that one. And then I can look at, because there's so
Yeah.
many. And when you get into like the expenditure codes, it goes up to like 6,000. Not that there's literally 6,000,
Yeah, no,
but.
But the 2
it
most
feels like
important
it.
ones for the budget
Mhm.
are 001 M&O, that's the main one, and 610 capital.
Mhm.
And then when you get into grants, you've got your 200s, which is sped, and you start knowing which one's title, which one's 21st century, where your revenues come from are the first 3 digits. Good question.
Okay, so this is a look at our grants. Overall, we are seeing a reduction in our grants budget for FY '25. I think probably the biggest reason is because our ESSER funding, our COVID funds are ending. And that was quite a lot for several years. Otherwise, we do have a slight reduction in Title I and the IDEA allocations for next year. And through all of our different grants, we have about 210 full-time employees that are paid for out of our grants.
Shelley, are some of the grants being cut
At the
across
federal level.
nationally?
Nationally, the Title I, Title II, Title IV, those have been cut, nationally, but specifically Arizona, because of they feel the calculations for Arizona are, where we have the poverty level, they feel we have a decrease in the number of students that are in poverty, because we're, at the state level, they're discussing, our minimum wage has really gone up, and so we have fewer at the poverty level, so the state of Arizona took a cut, because we're no longer a lower paid state. There's a big reason for our Title I.
And then IDEA, IDEA would be the special education funds. You haven't heard yet. What's the prediction? 10%. That's huge. And how much in IDEA funds are there?
Like 1.7.
1.7?
Yeah, so we have IDEA budgeted at 1.5.
Look on your sheet. Yeah, so that'd be another 150,000 if it is a 10% cut.
Another positive is we also reduced the number of schools in improvement, and so there's about a $250,000 decrease because we have fewer schools. We lost to CSI and several of our TSI school funds, so that was another big reduction, but for a positive.
Okay, I'm giving everybody time to like review and make sure there's no more questions. So our classroom site fund, or sometimes called our 301 money, this is allocated to our district based on student count, and this is our actual student count, not the weighted student count that we talked about before. And then our FY25 rate is $792 per student. So they just take our student count times the 792, and that is our classroom site fund allocation. And then we use that.
Is that student count last year's or projected for this year?
So it's an estimate for this next year.
Do they take it based on the 100th day?
So I actually had to calculate the amount, and so I think I used it on the 100th day of last year. So it could, my calculations on the actual budget that I submitted, there could be some variance there.
But do you know if the state uses the same day to calculate?
That I don't know. I just know it's based on actual student count, so I'm not sure if they.
I think it's the 100th day.
Yeah, we just start getting allocations before that.
For grants, they moved it to October 1st.
That 40?
That's the 40th. So October 1st, they just, because every school has a different 40th, 100th day, the state of Arizona is moving towards October 1st, but I don't know what it is on that.
Yeah.
Classroom site fund.
On all my research. Good question though. Didn't get that one. Oh no, I have it written down. FY24 100th day count is what I used, but I don't know what they used.
Okay.
So, and we discussed more in detail in the April board meeting how we use the classroom site fund for base pay, performance pay, and how we added a base payment of $3,000 to the school psychologist, speech pathologist. So any questions there?
And the base pay can go up if there's overtime or
No. If there's what do you mean overtime?
for psychologists or speech pathologists or,
This is just a one-time payment
okay.
in the beginning of the school year. I think we'll pay this out in July.
Gotcha.
So it'll just be a one-time payment.
Gotcha.
And then our instructional improvement fund. And these are funds received from state gaming revenue, and we have a current balance of 2.7 million. 50% of it can be used for teacher compensation, class size reduction. The other half can be used for dropout prevention or instructional improvement programs. We're currently using it for some teacher salaries and benefits and the longevity stipends that were approved in.
So that's on your packet for the 4:30 regular board meeting where a plan was submitted, if you were all here, can't remember exactly when you started, last May 9th, 2023 by Director Mulholland at the time. Feels like you've been here forever, but that is a long time ago.
Not me.
And so the longevity stipend that was proposed and approved at that time was for 0 to 3-year teachers to get 30%, 4 to 6-year teachers to get 60%, and 7+ years experienced teachers to get 100%. And it was approved at $1,000, so 300, 600, or $1,000. We went ahead and put it on the agenda for today, just in case there were new folks, new board members. And when we approve that again today, actually I put 3 years on for today, then we will pay out those stipends for this year. They'll pay out again next year and the following year. The way Director Mulholland presented it originally is how long could we sustain it? And the larger the stipend, obviously, the shorter number of years, so we went with 1,000. And Director Moreski just calculated how many teachers we have 0 to 3, 4 to 6, and 7+, so that we could tell you at the 4:30 board meeting, and it's almost identical to before. We are primarily a 0 to 3-year experienced district at this point. They're retiring off the top, and most of them are new, but it's about $250,000 for that longevity stipend.
So if we continue with the longevity stipends as we've discussed, this amount that we have should sustain us to 2033. Of course, it depends on how many teachers we have or how many stay longer amounts or shorter periods, but that's kind of until 2033 is the goal.
Can I ask what we're doing for dropout prevention? Is that the?
That's the COLA/PAC program. We call it our alternative campus officially at this point, but that is our dropout prevention campus.
Okay.
Okay. So SSC is our maintenance and custodial grounds operations for our district. In FY24, the total cost was $5,964,515, and that included just their monthly contract fees, and then additional special projects of about $333,000, and that would be anything that is outside of their scope in their contract. Currently, we're in negotiations for a new contract for next year. They have 86 employees that do work for KUSD, anywhere from HVAC, plumbing, electricians, custodians, groundskeepers. Okay, sorry, I'm pausing to give you guys time for questions.
You're doing well, thank you.
So our school lunch program, we are in the middle of a transition, and I really look forward to giving you guys an update at the next board meeting in July once that transition is complete. But so far, it's going well. Right now, I wanted to talk to you guys about the community eligibility provision, or we call it the CEP program. It's a non-pricing meal service option for schools and school districts in low-income areas. The CEP allows the district to serve breakfast and lunch at no cost to all enrolled students. Right now, 7 of our schools are under the CEP program, which means all kids eat there regardless of income for free, breakfast and lunch. And currently, Tanya Green, our food service coordinator, is working on an application for the rest of our schools to become CEP schools as well. And that's pretty exciting, to be able to offer breakfast and lunch to all of our kids for free. So I'm hopeful that that will.
No pressure, but do you recall what she said are the qualifying indicators coming to CEP? It's a lower percent of free and reduced.
It is.
I should have jotted down.
No.
But it has to do with the percent of free and reduced that you have.
And so far, what she has said, talking with those who were the administrators of the program, it looks very good for our district to be able to go all CEP throughout all of our schools.
Shelley, what's our, off the top of your head,
The-
our Title I
Our
percentage right now?
lowest school is 72% free and reduced.
Yeah, I thought so.
But we range up to the 95 percentiles.
Between 70 and 95.
I think in something I read, it said it was 79% of all of our schools was the number of participation in the free and reduced lunch. And one of those.
70 district average.
District-wide
So
was.
it might be the district.
Was 79, yeah. I know it's in one of the things I have opened on my laptop.
So is there no supper reimbursement?
There is,
Oh, there is?
yes.
Oh, okay. I was curious.
Yeah. So in FY '24, meals served, that's 675,000 meals, and that's across breakfast, lunch, and supper. And so supper currently is being served at these 5 schools: Black Mountain, Surbat, Desert Willow, Manzanita, and Mount Tipton. And that is a separate program from like the CEP that we just talked about. It has different qualifying guidelines, which I did look those up. Because the supper is free to all of those students, all the students regardless of income. So the qualifying guidelines for this, about 40 to 50% of the students on campus, if they qualify for free and reduced, then the whole campus can get supper for free. And so they serve it right after school is out, and then any kids who are sticking around for after-school activities are able to go get a meal and then stick around for any activities, so.
So if we're able to include all the schools in this CEP program, would that also flex
No.
out the summers too, or the suppers? Oh, well,
No, because they're different qualifying factors.
Oh, okay. Bummer. All right.
So then for FY '25, SFE will receive reimbursements per meal, $2.41 per breakfast, $3.93 per lunch, and then we also get reimbursed. We pay them, and then the government pays us back in reimbursements. And our school lunch program is really, it's a cost-neutral program. It doesn't cost us anything. The amount we get back from the government for this program covers everything that we pay our food service company, and there's leftover for us to be able to upgrade equipment if it breaks, pay salaries as needed, take care of our kitchens, cafeteria equipment, things like that. So transportation, right now, all of our expenses are about $4.3 million, which includes salaries and benefits, the diesel for our buses, any supplies and equipment, which could be repairs, car parts or bus parts, tires, also our bus loans, and any technology that's needed. Right now, we are running 44 routes with 44 buses going. Eligible students would have to live outside a 1 mile radius for elementary schools, 1.5 miles for middle school and high schools. And then reimbursements that we get from the state is based on those eligible students who are transported, daily route miles, and the state pays $2.89 per mile. And then they also take into consideration the number of instruction days. And per our FY '24 transportation report, we claimed about 700,000 miles. This feels like a lot.
It is a lot.
I'm like, that's a lot. If you divide it by the days of instruction, which we have less than a lot of schools in our state, it's a lot of miles.
What are the bus loans?
So I think it's, I don't know how many
Would be-
buses were bought,
yeah.
10 or 16.
There's new buses purchased every couple of years, and so when buses become antiquated and outdated, then you have to get a loan to get new buses. It's like a car loan.
Got it.
They're expensive.
I was making sure we weren't renting buses.
No, we're not.
not
Purchase
renting.
them.
And then I added utilities only to point out that the city of Kingman did vote recently to increase water rates by 26.5%. That's a lot. We're paying $412,000 in water and sewage, so for next year, we're looking at an increase of $109,000. Our natural gas, $120,000, and then electricity, about $880,000 a year.
Have we seen any big significant differences with all the solar panels we threw on houses?
Good
Or on
question.
Yes, we should have an annual report to give you shortly. I've been working with, Mid-State Energy. They need to supply us an annual report on our savings. And he said, when we read it, it's really important to notice inflation. You know, you have savings and then inflation kind of eats out of your savings, so what's your net savings? But, they report that we are above average and doing very well in, energy reduction and the energy collection on the solar panels. So I'll be able to give you those exact numbers shortly.
Cool, so this
They're
electricity
wrapping
won't
up.
change. Excellent.
Yeah.
Offset.
Good question.
Yeah, maybe we'll offset the water bill.
Yeah, that's for everybody, not just school districts. It's
Yeah.
just shocking.
Yeah.
Anybody
Minimum
within the
wage.
city of Kingman.
Minimum wage goes up and so does everything else.
Right.
Well, that percentage for water is.
That's.
And I tried doing the research and all of the things that the city put out, they did not increase rates for a very long time. They went a long time without, I'm sure it was overdue. I'll be kind.
I love my friends at the city that would stair step these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been nicer, but,
For especially large water consumers.
Can I ask a question, Gretchen?
Yes, absolutely.
yes.
Years ago, our water was figured with our sprinkler system, and we were going to put water meters on all of our sprinkler systems. Was that ever accomplished?
I do not have any idea, but I will find out in the next 24 hours.
It was just something that years
Meters
ago
on
we
the
said would
sprinkler
save us
system.
money because of the rapid rise of water increases. We were gonna do it, but never came back that we had done it because of the
Interesting.
cost of putting the water meters in. Well, obviously a 20% hike.
The sprinkler system, for some reason, Ron, my mind is.
No, not these. Sprinklers on the ground,
Yeah.
because they were all tied together, and we were paying, there's a different thing there because we cut our sewage that way. Sprinklers don't get included into our sewage rate.
Right.
So if we don't have water meters, we're paying for exactly what we use.
Yeah.
If we do have water meters, our water that we use on our grass isn't counted for our septic rates.
So we used to live just across the street from Manzanita over here, and so it would be like if you turned your outside waters off in January, February, March, or December, January, February, whatever, then whatever they calculated as your sewer usage was during those 3 months when people typically wouldn't be using irrigation water, outside water. And then you would carry that through all year long. I don't know if that applies to a school district or anything, but that's how it was across the street. So we just didn't water in those 3 months, and then it kinda kept the sewer increase lower, but.
Yeah, but homes can do the same thing. I just know that we were talking as a school district, doing it on all our sprinkler systems because of the septic.
Yeah, that was a number of years back, now that you're
Right.
talking about it. I will find out the accurate answer. I won't make an assumption answer.
But also something to think about, I mean, we could also look at going to turf on some of our schools.
That's what I was thinking.
Things like that to reduce our water. Turf is a big expenditure as well, but over time, just something that we could look and calculate and see if it's worth it, but. So every month, we send the board 3 different reports. I thought I'd go through them with you guys, that way if you have any questions, we can kind of answer on how to read them and, what they mean. Oh. So the budget control group report. This one goes through all of our club and school accounts. So first, the first first column, it says budget amount, and there's zeros all the way down. The district does not assign or give budgets to these accounts, so their money comes from fundraising or donations throughout the year. So that's why their budget amount in the beginning is at 0. And then the next column is the range transactions, and that's the current month's expenditures. So each of these reports we give you, it's a month, the previous month. So the next column is year-to-date transactions. And this one is tricky because this report does not give you very good information, doesn't give you all of the information. So this column, that number is calculated based on the fund balance rollover from the previous year, any revenues and expenditures, and then you get that number. So you're not able to see what all of that other information is, it just gives you that bottom line. We could include everything, it would be like a 200-page report if you really wanted to see all of it, but we could do that for you. And then,
Do you know why the year-to-date and the balance? One's a
Yes.
negative, one's a positive, and then
yes,
meet in the
it's
middle?
because of how we do debits and credits, and it's backwards, and so.
Well, it's not backwards by our design.
No, that's just the design of debits and credits. So it's negative in the transaction, but then your balance is a positive. Yep. And it makes a little bit more sense when
I
you.
just didn't want anyone to think they were the clubs were negative. That
No.
negative just tells you there's transactions there, the balance is positive, cause that's what they actually have.
Yeah, they really should not ever be negative. So yes, then you get that positive balance. And then the encumbrance are any open purchase orders that haven't been paid, and that just holds the funds so that we don't overspend. And then the last column is your final budget balance after transactions and encumbrances.
So all these numbers for the very final column, all these budget numbers, these were all from donations? And fundraising?
And fundraisers.
Wow, cool.
Mhm.
So Wallapai Auxiliary School Discretion, for example, that large one.
Yeah.
The 13, the 525, that's donations going there, they might have a fundraiser and put money in there, and that's where they can spend it on pretty much anything the school needs. But the others, that's sort of principal, PAL, principal monitor, anything that says, club, that's a student activities account. And adults cannot spend that money. Adults cannot spend this money. It has to be spent by the students, which means they have to have an approved club. They have to have bylaws, they have to have officers, and any expenditures must be voted on by the student officers. So it's a really, important area in the Auditor General's office. They pay a lot of attention during audits to the student activities. We have a full-time employee dedicated to receiving funds, banking the funds, making sure this is where the fundraisers all come into play. This is student money, which I just think it's fascinating and I love it. It's their money, their raised money and their expended money, so.
And, the accounts person who does monitor all of this, if the student clubs do want to spend any money, she goes in, she makes sure they have the funds for it. They have the club minutes and really make sure that they follow the protocols to be able to spend the money appropriately.
Very cool.
So you can be a sponsor of a student club, but you're not making the decisions on how that money is.
That's right. Okay, the next one is the expenditure budget balance report. This budget, so the first one, where it says budget, the first column, this budget is the amount the district sets for that fund in Visions, in our accounting software. And then the beginning of it, it should be based on like the proposed and adopted budget that we've just discussed.
And the prior director did not enter, this is why your reports were looking unusual. She did not enter, it's not a requirement, but it's best practices. She did not enter the initial budget in a lot of areas.
Right, so if you see that there's a 0 starting budget, one was not allocated just in the software. Doesn't mean that there wasn't a starting balance, it's just not in there. And then that's why you'll see, like the classroom site fund, no beginning balance, and so it looks like we're negative. We know we're not negative in that fund. We
This
know-
team will enter the starting balance.
Yes, so those are things correcting, and hopefully these reports will start looking better in the next fiscal year. So then the next column, range to date, those would be the expenditures in the month of the report. The next column, year to date, would be all of the expenditures from the beginning of the fiscal year to date. The balance is then the remaining budget after those expenditures. Again, we have encumbrances, which just those open purchase orders holding the funds so we don't overspend.
So what will always be accurate on here would be the range to date and year to date expenditures, because we can't not enter those into visions. So you'll always see what we spent and what's remaining.
Yeah. So
And
then,
encumbrances, would that be the same thing as a PO? Encumbrance.
the encumbrances are open purchase orders, RPOs. Yeah. So then, negative balances, of course, if our beginning budget balance wasn't entered correctly, wasn't entered at all, those would be the reasons why you're seeing a negative at the end. Sometimes we are holding a higher encumbrance that's needed, and so sometimes those will fall off. If we have a purchase order open thinking that, a project is gonna cost $50,000 and it comes in, oh no, it was only 10,000, well, we're holding 50,000, but then we're only paying the actual expenditures of 10. So every once in a while, sometimes we're holding a little bit more in an encumbrance than is actually needed.
Once the PO, the invoice is paid and the PO is processed, that encumbrance falls off and
Right.
it becomes a full expenditure.
Okay, and then, the next one, the fund balance report. So the first column is the beginning balance. This is gonna be the balance that was rolled over from the previous fiscal year, any remaining in that fund. So that's gonna be your beginning balance. And then revenue, what's the next one? Revenue is year-to-date revenue that's been recorded in visions. Expenses are also year-to-date. Transfers, this doesn't happen a lot, but every once in a while, we do transfer money between funds for different reasons. Maybe it was entered incorrectly to begin with, and we realized, oh, that did not belong in that fund, so we're gonna transfer it from one fund to another. And then, again, sometimes you're gonna see that there's negatives in your fund balance at the end. And so that's for a couple of different reasons. Some of our funds are based on reimbursements, so sometimes we expend the money first, and then we apply for a reimbursement. And so while we're waiting for the reimbursement, it's going to look negative. Right now, May and June revenue, not all of that revenue has been booked. We haven't reconciled our bank accounts yet. And so if we haven't told Visions we've received money, then it's going to look like it's negative, even though the money is in the bank account. It just hasn't been recorded in Visions. So that could be another reason why it looks negative at any given moment. Okay, we are just speeding through these, you guys. So looking at the next year ahead, there are a few dates that we wanna make sure that we're keeping track of and that we're being held accountable to. In the past, we've had some audit findings for either our budget or our AFR not being submitted on time, and we're committed to having that not happen again. So the next thing on my list, make sure that happens, is that our vehicle inventory report is submitted by the 15th, and transportation is on it. They know about it, they're ready for it. If we adopt this budget that we've discussed today at the board meeting, then I'm not going to wait until July 18th to submit that. I'll have that done. I will forget between now and then, so I will do it by tomorrow morning. It will be uploaded. I actually don't think I mentioned this one before. Our primary and secondary property taxes have not been set yet. We haven't received those reports from the state to be able to actually do the calculations. And so everything in the proposed budget is based on last fiscal year, left it the same as an estimation. And so once we get those reports, I'll work with the county to make sure that we're assessing correctly and appropriately for our district. But the deadline for that is the third Monday in August. And then we also are allowed 3 budget revisions throughout the year, the September 15th, December 15th, and May 15th. They're not all required, but as we see changes are necessary or we find mistakes, which I've already found a few, we'll do revisions to make sure that we're staying on top of it. And then the AFR, by October 15th, that has to be sent over to the county school superintendent. And then by November 15th, published on the ADE's website. And, oh, the 100th day, our transportation route report for our 100th day as well. So those are some of the things. And do you guys have any other questions? I want to talk about other things.
I got, for the expenditure budget, I think that was the last page we talked about. You said some of them, will show, is it this one or the one before? That it'll show the negatives
Fund
until
balance.
reimbursements occur.
Yes.
When do those reimbursements occur? And do we know, because I'm looking at the maintenance and operation fund, and, for June 24, and are we hoping to get reimbursed $4 million?
So that one, maintenance and operation, that's gonna be one, I'm hoping it's negative because we just have not recognized all of our revenue and visions yet for May and June. So it looks like we're spending money through May and through June up till now, we're still spending money, but we haven't told visions we've received any money. So it looks negative.
We didn't record our deposited check yet.
Oh, okay.
Because, what's happening right now is Director Jones is working with the county, since we're gonna be working very closely with them, it's a good thing. On fund balances and reconciliations, we're gonna do that together with them to start July, to make sure we start July 1 up to date and fresh, so. We still have to enter into visions for FY '24, all of M&O's revenue, which will surpass that easily.
Yes, for May and June, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
For grant reimbursement, Shelley, do you
Yeah,
want to?
that's a little different.
Yeah, so our grant reimbursements, we do monthly. However, whenever we have a global hold or a grants in a revision state, means we wanted to make some changes, move some of the funds around, we have to wait for director approval. And that takes some time on the ADE, so our reimbursements are on hold until we receive the fund back, and then we can start reimbursement. So we're kind of on, sometimes at the mercy of ADE, and other times it's until we are compliant with whatever our global hold might be. But if not, we try to do our reimbursements monthly.
And so, the reimbursements, is it based off of a percentage, like they'll say we will reimburse 50% of what you spend? Or is it, we're going to reimburse up to this amount of money, so it's a use or lose type scenario?
No, it's 100%. So what basically most funds are, if it's what they call is more of a Passover grant, they give us all the money up front, and then we just reconcile with the county, saying that we have spent these. But if it is like a Title I fund, they say this is the amount they're going to give us, we budget that amount, and we have to send them the receipts and all the documentation to show that we've used it to pay a salary or a stipend, and then they will look it over. So the reimbursements, we're just asking them to give us the budget amount set aside for us, so we have to prove that we've spent it.
On what we
On-
said we would spend it, that's the,
Correct.
on grant, like in M&O, we really have a lot of flexibility. But in grants, if I say I'm going to spend, $40,000 plus 10,000 in benefits on a person's salary, and then I write the narrative in the grant, this is the person, this is their salary, this is why we've hired them, they meet the requirements of the grant, you're pledging to spend the money in the way that you're asking for it, and so, then you have to prove you did it, and then they give it to you. If I say I'm gonna do it on a $40,000 person and $10,000, then I buy Jennifer Hannon a brand new office suite instead, when I turn in the receipt, they're gonna go, that's not a $40,000 employee with benefits, you're not getting your reimbursement. So Shelley and Michelle Cook are outstanding. If you recall at the the audit review, there were 0 findings in grants, which means they have not missed a beat, so they always get their reimbursements. Occasionally, the game changes midstream, and the ADE and the grants department will come back and say, I know, this is what we said, but we want you to jump through a different couple of hoops, and they always do it, and they always get their reimbursements. It's a trust relationship money game, but it's risky, Board Member Hardy, it's very nerve-wracking. You always submit those reimbursements, and then you think,
Please give it to us.
I got 2 more, if that's okay.
yeah, you go right. Yeah, so we have
Instructional
until 4:30.
Improvement Fund, funds from the state gaining revenue, current balance 2.7 million. We talked about having a surplus and dividing it out till 2033 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So is this a one-time, they just gave us money once and?
No.
No, it accumulated over time.
Yeah, when I arrived here in this position, I met with a couple of, actually it was KEA if memory serves me. And they introduced me to this fund, and then we did some research. You remember, you were here. And we found that we had been given allocations that hadn't been expended. And so that's where we said, hold on, if we're gonna receive allocations, we need to give it back to the teachers. So I'm not sure what the annual allocation is, but that was a buildup of several years of not using it.
Oh, okay, so we are not getting 2 million every
No.
year from the state?
No.
Okay, we had a lot of anonymous people that needed to go seek help. Gambling, sorry. That being said, so this will be an ever decreasing number until we find the balance
Yep.
where their income will match where their input's going to the output even.
Yes.
Yeah, or if we had to
Okay.
stop it for a time period and let it build up again, we'll just have to monitor it and see what we're able to continue to do.
And what are we doing with the money? Is it collecting interest for us, like in a?
It,
No.
it's sitting in our county.
Well, actually, it does. Any
It-
money in the county does
Yeah.
collect interest. And that was one of the things we learned from our auditors this year, is the apportionment of that principal and interest. So if it's into that fund, then we need to apportion the principal and interest back into that fund that it earned, and the student activities, and the M&O, and the unrestricted capital. So yes, it does earn extra.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, yes.
Do we know collectively how much we bring in from tax money, that people,
Property taxes?
know the money that can be donated to the schools every year and deducted in
The
your
tax
personal tax?
credits.
Yeah.
Yes, we can give you a
Total.
report on that at the July meeting.
Mhm.
It's, it's very interesting. We'll give you a full report on it, because they can donate to any school, either in general, as you know, or they can donate to a school in a specific purpose.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to tell you what they have in the school discretion account, and then by each, denoted, donation. Schools cannot spend tax credit money unless they have a site council, which is that council of, admin, teachers, support staff, community, and parents, that they vote on the expenditures of that tax credit money. And so some schools have quite a bit, because they don't always go through that site council process. So that's one of the things we're working on with principals, is get a site council and expend some of your tax credit money. Now, clubs and things can do that, I'm talking the school discretion.
And there are restrictions on how you can spend the money. The schools and the clubs can't spend it on anything.
It's not
And-
student related.
And they're changing the restrictions again for FY '25, they're removing technology as one of the allowable expenditures, which is too bad.
That's another one where adults can't just spend it on what they want. Adults meaning employee adults.
So, and I'm not sure if this totally applies to this, but I figure it's budget, and this is something, it has stuck with me since we talked about it, I don't even know how many months ago. The insurance teachers have to pay. Have we shopped around anymore? And is it something that is a federal, or is it something that has to be located like in Arizona insurance? Cause that bugs me, cause I have family that are teachers, and
Mhm.
that hit me hard, and I was really quite disgusted by it. Is there any other bids? Have we heard anything? Are we pursuing
I
something?
will be pursuing. I did start looking for a few, different companies to call so that I could even figure out how to do it. And then budgets and other things took precedence, but it is on my list.
Right, okay.
I really hope we can. I'm not super confident. We've also spoken to a couple other school districts and they have similar,
Wow, that just blows my
Rates.
mind. Cause I keep thinking about the retention
Mhm. I
aspect.
know.
You said 0 to 3. I'm like, if I was a teacher paying $2,000 a month for insurance, I'd go somewhere too. That's a gut punch. It was just-
Well, yeah, hardly anybody does that because they can't afford it.
Yeah, they
People
better
will take
apply.
the free
Or-
plan
yeah.
and go without the additional. So they can have a zero cost, but anyone with a family really suffers.
Yeah, you really can't if you have a family.
It is, I think disgusting is a good adjective.
yeah.
Are we gonna look into any of this extra money maybe going in to help alleviate some of that?
Yeah, that's what I was hoping, like 2 million a year from the gaming. I'm like, let's do the
No,
teachers
it
pay off
can't.
insurance.
Yeah.
The gaming won't pay for that.
Yeah.
We'll only pay for teacher and class reduction and all programs.
Teachers know we're trying.
Yeah.
However, if it can pay teachers, it's a pass-through to cover that cost a little bit. If we can give them $1,000 through gaming because we can't pay insurance, then that does reduce their cost.
Yeah.
It's not taken from their contract. We can find creative ways.
Yeah, and I'd love to see some serious Cirque du Soleil creativity on
Yeah,
it.
Cirque du
or
Soleil.
something. And,
That is a good way to say it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to benefits, it's tricky as well because, you can get roped into a really great sounding contract and really great rates. And then the next year, they've increased it 10%, and then the next year 10%, and then you're right back where you started, so it's a fine line.
Do we know how many, does every company tie us to like a 3 or 5 year commitment? Or is it something like after a year, you just saw that and you're like, what the hell?
It's as far as I know, it would be, I would have to research the one that we have now, it's every year they can change the rates.
And we could
So-
change companies, but it's huge, and we do it to ourselves. So it's almost like car shopping with a bad credit rating. We have such high usage and high expenditures and high drug costs and high everything, that when we do shop around, we will give them our data and they will be like, no. So we've gotta somehow get healthier as human species, and we can't control the hospital costs, but it's all a part of it. It's very, very, very frustrating.
So is that something we could look into with that potential 7 million or 11 million? At the very, very beginning, we talked about it, prepare for the worst, hope for the best, 11 million we talked about. Is that what some of that is kind of set aside for? You said we had a large budget for the what if, since we can't just put it in the retention thing for the library. Is that something that we could research into moving that into, or is that?
Yeah, we can do any
Possibly.
revision to a budget and.
But that's not out of bounds of what that
No,
money could be
not
used
at all.
for? Okay. That was, all right, I'm done, thank you, sorry, that was my.
Encourage the wellness aspect of it. Before we moved here, we had an insurance company that you could go and do a wellness exam, and then based off of that, that's what our premiums were, and then how much you used it through the year, and they would reimburse your parts of your premium. That was nice when you're younger. Yeah. Anyone else have a question or comment? Since we are still in the public hearing part before we close it.
I'm gonna finish one more question.
Okay.
So, I'm just that guy today. All this budget stuff, and this comes directly actually from a question the Daily Miner person asked me. What are we, and it honestly didn't cross my mind that much until she talked about it, is after school stuff for the children and to help parents that are working until 5 p.m. Us letting the kids out at 2:30 is kind of like just.
I can tell you, now, it's been kind of under the wraps negotiation conversations for quite a few months, and I don't know if it hit the minor yet, maybe you all already know. but the Boys and Girls Club of America is coming to Kingman. They do have a fantastic facility. They're going to staff, it's private and fundraising donations, but they're gonna fully staff after school and Fridays and program. They have a fantastic plan. I've met with the director virtually several times, and I've shared with him our commitment. We will provide busing, information access. I've even shared that employees that finished on our campus could go over and they could employ them on their campus. So their goal was to have it open by July 1. I think it may be August because it's a pretty big move, but it's going to be a game changer in the Kingman community.
Where's it gonna be at?
It's on Airway, in one of those large unoccupied buildings.
That's great. No, this is the first, like
Yeah.
Dave Minor had two questions about it, and
I hope I'm
it
not
didn't cross my mind.
totally jumping the gun, but I think it's public information now. It was pretty private for a long time.
Still great
But there's
news.
been a committee working on it, and they've done a fantastic job, and the gentleman who's, I forget the title, the Boys and Girls Club area director, they're gonna employ quite a few people, and they're gonna be able to handle a lot of students.
And we're gonna be able to help
Yes.
get the kids there and everything.
We will get the kids there, and we will help with programming. We will work with them on if there's tutoring, providing tutors and materials.
Will that be a summer thing as well, do we know? I don't
Yeah,
know
it'll
much
be
about
year-round.
those girls. That's great. Oh,
And the Boys and Girls Club is reputable. And it's pretty exciting.
yeah, that's super exciting. Awesome. That was my final curious, so thank you very much.
They need to get, they need to get that publicized.
They really
I'm gonna
do.
circle back to my contacts and see
Yeah.
if they're ready to announce. I announced, it's been announced.
Just in case you're not ready, it's done.
Do we have a plan for that building that we use?
Yes, Principal Hannon, since it's on her campus, the Lee Williams High School campus, she needs the space. Lee Williams is a pretty crowded campus. It's going to be a testing center. Well, if we can have our IT department work with them to get it wired.
We're in talks about it.
We're in talks. It hasn't been approved or planned. But she can use it for practice space. I know, the underbelly of it's gonna be used from some athletic reasons. And then we'll continue to, work with the city. They utilize it a lot. Part of our IGA with the city is they will do basketball, I think, programs there. We don't pay for trash. We still pay for water. We don't pay for trash, we don't pay for the use of the pool, the golf course. It's sort of a symbiotic relationship. So a combination of Lee Williams space and city use.
Very good.
Ooh, this is, I don't know if it applies to the budget. All that soccer space we're talking about opening up behind White Cliffs. With the water budget, have we heard, like anyone's like, hang on a second, let's re-talk about this?
Well, I mean, it's a city
Lot of
project,
grass.
so they're probably not charging themselves.
Oh, but there is not any effect on us.
No effect on
from
us
school
whatsoever,
system.
actually. We can use them anytime we want at no cost, including water.
How about it? Okay. Good.
All sports will be held there.
Yeah.
Has there been any talk about Kingman becoming like a unified school sports program?
You know,
No.
that's been brought up many times over the years. When I was principal at Lee Williams, there was actually a committee that talked about it at one point. Ann Caston, I hope she doesn't mind me name dropping her, she had a lot of information at the time where, for example, if, Lee Williams has a lacrosse team and Kingman High does not have a lacrosse team, if you're in the same district and one has and one doesn't, you can do unified. You could do unified across the board, or you could do unified where one sport is available and the other isn't. But we haven't looked into it recently. We did talk about it with marching band at one time years ago as well. But it's an option. At the time, we were talking about it to try to reduce the rivalry, which was pretty heated, during those early years.
For me, I was thinking more of like the chess clubs and the stuff that, the robotics club I saw in there, they only had like $65.
That's unified.
That is unified. Okay, that's what I'm wondering was
Yep.
like if they
You
have
could do
60.
chess clubs, you could do any of those things.
So all school access to one chess club, all the funding goes to one chess club, and they raise one as a group. Oh, cool. I was just-
Yeah, robotics is an excellent example of that.
Yeah. Great, I'm good.
All right, then. Is there a motion then to reconvene into a regular session?
I'll make the motion.
A motion on the
calling to order the special board meeting of the Kingman Unified School District number 20, Tuesday, June 25th, 2024 at 4:30. Will you stand with recite the pledge of allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Tony Henry.
Star Jensen.
Boyd Hardy.
So we have a quorum. We are adding a call to the public. We have Miss Eve Garland to speak today.
I don't know the proper way to address you. I know you're a president. Anyway, thank you for listening to me. My name is Eve Garland. I'm a member of the literacy committee that volunteers here in the area to help kids read, and a grandmother of 6 with an additional one on the way. Thank you, Mr. IT person, for your diligence in asking the AI that the students are going to have access to how babies are made, or something similar I heard last time I was here. I'm somewhat comforted that you said it was a purely biological answer. But I would also like to implore you to ask the AI more questions with the hope that the answers will also be biological, scientific in nature. The 4 questions are: what is a woman? What is a man? What is a boy? What is a girl? I am generally quiet in these meetings. In fact, it's the very first time in my 25 years here in Kingman and attending city council meeting almost every time during that time, and started coming here recently. I don't talk in these kinds of meetings. But this morning I had a conversation with my 13-year-old granddaughter. And in the course of the conversation, she said, people can choose their genders. So I would like to know what AI that our students have access to says on that subject. I hope it's biological and scientific, XX and XY. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, so that moves us to item number 4 on the consent agenda. Basically this month, for this meeting, we just have fundraisers on there. I think we've had a chance to look over them, so is there a motion then to receive the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'm gonna second it.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, possible action to approve Kingman Unified School District number 20's gifted education scope and sequence.
Hello, President Henry, members of the board. The Advanced Learning Program, or ALPS, at Kingman Unified School District provides an advanced and/or accelerated pathway for our high-achieving students in elementary, middle, and high school. Our pathways consist of gifted and accelerated education in grades K through 5, Cambridge International in grades 6 through 12, and dual enrollment in grades 10 through 12. As part of our strategic plan, 1, to create equitable and accessible learning environments, and 2, to provide effective and transparent transitions, national and local norms are used to identify students who qualify for services through our KUSD Gifted and Accelerated program, which is detailed in the KUSD Gifted Scope and Sequence that you received a copy of. This scope and sequence, which includes the details of our Gifted and Accelerated program in grades K through 12, as required by state statute, was developed through committee meetings, collaboration with accelerated learning teachers, which also are referred to as ALT, and site principals over the last several years. As required by the state law, our elementary schools provide screening windows 3 times a year. For the last 3 years, we have also participated in the Arizona Grade 2 Universal Screening, which has helped us to systematically screen all 2nd graders in the district and identify students with designated giftedness. We will participate in the Arizona Grade 2 Universal Screening again next year. With total school cluster grouping, we are also using local norms to identify the top high-achieving students at each elementary school so as to provide enriching learning opportunities for all of our students, regardless of the location of the elementary school. All schools have high achievers within local norms, and we are committed to providing students with a learning need to be challenged. the services to advance their learning wherever they are in the district. Our district Gifted in Cambridge web pages provide the community with information regarding our gifted screening placement protocol, program information, and other resources for our families. According to Arizona Revised Statutes 15779.02, KUSD gifted scope and sequence is required by law to be board approved and submitted to the state by July 1st. If you have questions about the scope and sequence that you had, I will do my best to answer them. But otherwise, we do ask, as I mentioned, to have it approved so we can submit it to the state by July 1. Because these students, per state statute, receive additional weighted funding, kind of what was referred to earlier in the workshop.
So you have any questions? Well, I did receive some questions by email. The person didn't think we were gonna be having a call to public. So I'm just gonna read some of their statements and potentially their question, and it would be stuff that we wouldn't necessarily know. I can read about it in the thing, but I wouldn't necessarily be able to say that it's accurate or not. So that's just the only reason I'm bringing it up. It mentions on page 7 of the scope and sequence in the middle column, second to the last row, states that the district uses AP, IB, and CIE coursework for differentiating instruction for 9 through 12. Our district has neither AP nor IB for years. I know my daughter took AP classes way back when, but that's been a while. In addition, the district description mentions CIE exams, but does not mention that students at all 9 through 12 levels do not have to take those exams for evaluation of our programs, that they're strictly voluntary. And the CIE is the Cambridge,
Correct.
right? Says the 6 through 8 indicators state that the National History Day is used, yet the program is only at KMS, and the same for the building project, and the Seeds of Change is only at White Cliffs Middle School. The question is asked, if we're going to use this particular document, shouldn't it be correct as to what we use and require, not necessarily programs that we don't no longer use, or evaluations that the students don't actually have to participate in as part of our scope and sequence or as part of our evaluation process.
So I'm looking at page 7, the middle column, the reference to the AP, IB, or CIE coursework. That column is actually provided by the state as possible indicators. So what we actually do in the district is the third column over.
Correct.
So instead of, that example column does not all of it applies to KUSD. So yes, we do use just the Cambridge International exams. And students that qualify for gifted have the opportunity to opt into the program, or, I'm sorry, they can opt out if they choose not to be in it, and that would be through discussion with parents. And as far as the exams go, students are not required to sit for them, partly because there are exams in June and also on Fridays. So if students aren't required to be in school that day, it's very difficult to require them to come, especially in June, to come back and take exams. However, even though they may not be sitting for those exams, they are being prepared for them all year long as if they were going to sit for them. So they're learning the same content as if they had been going to take the exam at the end of the course. As far as the 6 through 8 programs, we can add that notation on here that those programs are specifically at those schools. So National History Day is at Kingman Middle School, the Building Design Project is at Kingman Middle School, and Seeds for Change is at White Cliffs Middle School.
Thank you. Any other questions? Then would there be a motion to approve the gifted education scope and sequence?
I will make the motion to approve.
And I'll second it.
All right, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Item number 6, possible action to approve board book proposal for the 24-25 school year.
Board President and members of the board, If approved, this proposal for board book premiere will begin for the August 2024 board meeting. Board book requires at least 2 weeks to a month of working with our IT department to get the system integrated. And in your packet, it includes everything that board book premiere includes on their platform. The reoccurring cost will be $3,250 per year. And this price does include maintenance, support, installation, training, and implementation. And I did include a graph to show what Board Docs Pro included versus what Board Book Premiere includes, just because that was the one that was brought up for us to look into. So you can see that it is pretty much very similar, just a couple things that are not included in Board Book Premiere is included in Board Docs. But if you have any questions about what they offer, I can answer it. But it's pretty much a yearly contract. And then it's $32.50 per year. If for whatever reason we didn't like it or it wasn't meeting our needs, we could cancel it at any time, but we do not get refunded for the $32.50, but we will still have access to it for the full year. So yeah, at the end of the first year, if we feel it's not meeting our needs, we can look into other board docs.
Right.
But they are not affiliated with ASBA like Board Docs is.
Okay.
But they do offer pretty much everything that we were looking for in Board Docs and at a fraction of the cost.
To be able to put more things online
Yes,
for
so-
access, or
Right.
backup documents for the public to be able to see, such as this graph.
Right, yes.
Those kind of things.
And they have like the follow along feature so that if you're managing the board meeting and you're going to item 7, anybody else who's following along can also get pushed down to item 7 so they know exactly where we were in case they got lost.
Get
And you guys
distracted.
can vote in real time as well, so you guys can each put your votes and it will show it up online to show who's voting yes and who's voting no and if it passes or not, so. You guys can make notes on there for your own personal, like instead of writing it down, you can type notes in it. And I don't know, it's pretty cool, I'm excited to try it, and I think it'll be great, yeah, for the public to view, instead of having to come in and see it in the, on the paper form, so.
Awesome.
And you said installation, maintenance installation, what is the actual installation portion?
It's just them integrating it into our website so that we have it.
But it's not like a hard device sitting somewhere? it's
No,
just
no, no.
them, okay.
Yeah, they'll work with the IT to get it installed through our, like, to add their program into our website. And then that way we upload everything through them.
A fraction of the cost, I like that one.
It's a very big difference.
Well, I'm glad you were required to look into it then.
Yeah, definitely, so.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. All right, well then, would somebody like to make a motion then to approve, board books, for the 24-25 school year?
I will make that motion.
I will second.
All right, any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, approve instructional improvement fund compensation proposal for the fiscal year 26.
Through 26.
Through 26.
President Henry, members of the board, as I mentioned in the workshop, this is the stipend that will be paid to all certified eligible teachers using the instructional improvement fund based on their longevity. Staff that are here have been here 0 to 3 years will receive $300, 4 to 6 years, $600, and 7 or more years, a $1,000 stipend payment. Finance would pay out the stipend that represents the end of this FY '24 year in coming weeks. And then in May or early June of next year, they would receive another, and then the following year after that. At which time we'll assess the funds and continue from there.
I think we kind of discussed it already, so we did.
Yep.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve it.
All right, we have a
I
motion.
will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8, possible action to approve the proposed fiscal year 25 M&O and capital expenditure budgets.
President Henry and members of the board, if approved, the FY '25 proposed budget as discussed in the public hearing will be adopted with a final M&O budget capacity $652,348, including the $11 million carryover from fiscal year '24, with a reduction of about $1 million for our energy and water savings fund and $1.7 million for our 3% non-compliance. Final unrestricted capital capacity of $8,340,075, with more than $4.5 million slated for spending and the rest saved as cash reserves. Our primary and secondary tax rates have not been calculated yet, as the state has not released FY25 forms yet. Our proposed budget is estimated with FY24 rates. Any inflation adjustments have not been approved by the state yet and are not included in this budget. Our first budget revision will have these adjustments included.
Well, again, we thank you for the budget workshop earlier. So then would there be a motion to approve the fiscal year M&O and capital expenditure budgets?
I'll make the motion.
Seconded.
All right, we have a motion on the table and a second. Last chance for questions, comments, or concerns? I think we voiced those earlier too. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, item number 9, sole source determination for radio engineering industry software, Armor Software Suite, and the HD series camera systems installed on the bus fleet.
President Henry and members of the board, the district requests the board to approve Radio Engineering Industries as a sole source vendor for its offering of Armor Software Suite. Based on the REI ISO manufacturing and proprietary standards, no other Armor Software Suite will function with the HD series camera system. The district asks the board to continue with Radio Engineering Industries to support the updated camera system on our current bus fleet. Armor Software Suite will allow dispatchers to look at video coverage at any given time. No more waiting for the bus to return to the yard so the video coverage can be downloaded. Children that don't arrive home in a timely manner can be reviewed on video footage and provide information as to the stop the child exited on the bus. Annual spending shall not exceed $25,000. The camera systems were installed July 2023 on the current bus fleet, and the software to continue the services required for the cameras to work as the district needs. No other company provides this Armor Software Suite.
Yes.
The Armor Software Suite, is that like a proprietary name brand of this company? Or is that just kind of like saying
I
Firewire?
think so. I'm not as familiar with this, but that's my understanding.
Tim's familiar.
Board President, other members. So the Armor Suite is just what they call it. It's all the different tools they have. Insight, which tells you more about where the bus is and what they have been doing when their stop signs have come out, if they're speeding. GPS location, that's their Insight package. Their autopilot is where you do all of the bus recordings. So when their dispatch gets a request from a site to pull a video, that's in their autopilot section. So all these different tools are just part of their Armor Suite, which is basically just the dashboard that you use to access the system.
Okay, so, this is the only company that does that, there's so many acronyms. Radio Engineering Industries.
I know.
Kind of a blur.
So REI, I believe is an acronym for REI. They're specifically a bus video camera solution. So they specifically only do bus cameras and bus specific technology. So I have not heard of any other bus specific camera solutions. I know in the past that we have thought about putting some of our school type cameras on the buses, but they're not specifically made for buses. And then all the other software they provide is specific to buses. I'm sure there are other companies that exist, but this one is quite adept at what they do.
And then, when it comes to, we talked about just recycling buses or coming in and getting new buses, what's the cost to upgrade the new buses with this suite of camera work like that? What is the cost? Do they take it out of the old bus?
So,
Is it something that's
I don't know the
metal?
exact cost. I wasn't part of that project, but my assumption is that whenever they have a bus that they're retiring or putting up for auction, that they use that money to then help outfit new buses or purchase new buses with that already on them. The transportation manager and the previous assistant superintendent were the two that were heading that project, so they would know more information than I would.
Are they training you guys to work
Yeah.
on these? Or if a bus driver comes in the morning, it's down, do we have to wait till somebody from the company comes in, or?
So, everybody at my department in information technology was trained on how to use these, myself especially, so I know the ins and outs of the entire program. Transportation handles the programs on the day-to-day. If they run into any issues, we are informed immediately, we can assist, but they do have a 24/7 support with REI that if there is any issues, they will send down an engineer or a technician to fix whatever issue it is.
Will we have a couple extras
Cameras on hand?
Hardware. yeah.
without having to wait?
I do not believe so, but I believe we can get them overnighted from Phoenix.
You can tell you're an experienced principal when
Yes,
you've had
they're so
cameras.
critical.
I will say at this point, we have had no issues with them. No cameras have gone down yet.
We've had this in
Oh,
our
that's
fleet
good.
since 22 or 3.
22 last summer, I believe, is when they got installed.
Installed July 2023 on the
2023.
current
So
bus
just-
fleet, so just
just
a
barely
year.
a year.
And what's been the maintenance requirements for that last year?
Teaching new dispatch people how to use them is pretty much all we've really had to do.
Well, I know they take a beating on some of
Yeah.
these roads.
We haven't had
too.
any of them break. We haven't had any of the DVR systems within the buses, which also act as a router that provides cell signal. We haven't had any of those break. So, seems like a pretty resilient system. We do have a couple cameras on the outside of the buses. Those seem to be doing fine as well, for weatherproofing and not that I've been aware, but if any buses have got too close to trees or anything like that, it seems like they've been holding up pretty well.
Good, because I know that.
We have principals use them remotely.
Yep, so since it all is cloud-based, a principal could use them from home to request a video without having to come all the way back to their site, get on their work computer, the KOC computer, and then access it there. Because it is cloud, they can access it from their phone, from home, from vacation if they need to. So it's, the system itself is always at your fingertips. You can use it wherever you want.
Because Murphy's Law is when you need it most is when it doesn't seem to be working.
So far, we have not run into that. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Nope, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yes.
Then would there be a motion to approve sole source for radio REI?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more comments? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that takes us to item number 10, possible action to select superintendent evaluation tool for the 24-25 school year.
President Henry and members of the board, governing board members, in collaboration with the superintendent, may choose one of two tools to use in the evaluation of the superintendent for fiscal year 2024-25. The evaluation tools to choose from are included in your packets. A discussion item was included on the May governing board agenda, through which board members and the superintendent were able to discuss the evaluation tools. Staff now bring this back as an action item for the board's decision as to which tool to use in the evaluation of the superintendent for fiscal year 2024-25.
Do you guys have a preference?
I don't really have a preference, but it seemed to come with the same idea.
Same basic information.
Wording.
One was 4 pages and one was 18 pages.
I can tell you why I chose the 4-page one. But it had nothing to do with content.
Dr. Dorner, was there one that you felt highlighted your
Well,
strengths?
with respect to the 4-page comment, I like the 18.
And you both said you like numbers, so I don't know where to go with that one.
Obviously, they both have the same indicators and areas, and I feel like part of what we talked about in my evaluation conversation is can be shown through either one, so I'm fine with either. I do plan to come with supporting documents, as in the performance pay piece, we've sort of outlined the 18 pages honestly, so if you wanna collect the data on the 4-page, I'm good with that. Either way.
From an educator background, was there either of those that you were doing evaluations on employees would have been.
No, cause you can say the same thing with those 4 pages as you can with the 18.
Alright, then. You have to select one. So
Like
we
to make the motion to accept the 4-page.
for the CBI-E. It's the 4-page one. Alright, so we have a motion on the table then to accept exhibit CBI-E as the evaluation for the superintendent.
I will second that motion.
Okay, any other comments? Questions?
Actually, one
Yes.
comment slash question. With the 4-page one, is this this is for the 24-25, and the questions seem to, again, they resonate with a lot of the same ideas, different wording. When we approach the next year, is that something that, is it gonna be pretty much the same system, or is it something that drastically alters from year to year depending on what happened between? Has this been kind of a universally history run thing?
Right, the one evaluation tool, the 4-page one, has been in existence, if I understand your question correctly, for quite some time. And it was just, through a collaborative effort that they developed the new tool to provide a choice.
Did anybody talk about why the benefit of the extended one was? Was there a benefit to it that I missed?
I think it was a collaborative effort of different school superintendents that got together and really looked at, what are the responsibilities of the position, and I think they just detailed it out more about all the different functional areas that the superintendent has oversight over.
It seems more like a portfolio
Right.
versus a summative, in my opinion. I would come with portfolio information for your summative gathering.
I think the longer one, and Dr. Dorner, I don't know if you would agree, it's a little bit more database perhaps.
Which I like.
The abbreviated one is, right, not quite as specific as far as the rubric, if you will.
Okay, I was just curious. I'm still gonna go for the 4-page one, but I just wanted some clarification, and there was a discussion about why it was even looked at, the larger one versus the smaller, because I wanna give the best information for her, about her, or whoever it is at the time. And if all the superintendents got together and they actually sat down and said, this is a better option, was it ever expressed like that? Or was it always just like, man, here's another option, kind of throw it out there?
I'm sorry, I don't know. I know it was at least intended to be a choice. If the board was looking for something a little bit more expansive and a little bit more detailed, but I don't recall seeing anything, whether they recommended one or the other. So, they're both in policy as an option.
I could see that the larger one with more content for a superintendent of a bigger district, too, the way I looked at it.
We've got a pretty large district.
Yeah, but I'm thinking compared to Mesa or.
Well, and it's my understanding from ASBA that when enough districts request something, then that's one of the things they try to provide. So if over, us being a fairly new board, we wouldn't have been in those particular conversations, but if enough school boards had said, hey, we would like this, then that's why they would have put together, something more like this for us to have, like she said, to have a choice, but it would have been because, users, school boards would have asked for it.
I don't know, I like the,
Conciseness.
yeah.
That's what I like.
So,
I do have, something I can just throw out there as well. Just this was the information part. The Arizona School Administrators and the Arizona School Boards Association, introduced this comprehensive, rigorous superintendent evaluation tool for governing boards and superintendents. The evaluation evaluation tool and handbook were developed collaboratively with superintendents and board members from across Arizona, and they are reflective of the collective diverse voice of both groups. Data and feedback collected from the 10 districts that piloted the tool in the 2021-22 school year also informed the final product. And then just kind of, there's a section on making the most of the responsibility. So it says, while an evaluation is required, few other things about it are prescribed. The process to evaluate the superintendent is not defined by statute, nor is the use of a specific evaluation tool. They are local decisions that the governing board and superintendent teams must make together. So I think it kind of goes back to that, wanting to give the board a choice and the superintendent a choice.
So, and I know that it's already been in a past meeting, and then we're bringing these two tools back now, but we are missing two board members, so would it be out of line to get their input before an actual vote was taken? Because it's gonna take a unanimous vote here, but it's potential that they might have insight into I mean, I don't know if they emailed, you know, if they emailed a response.
To that, but I didn't get it.
Okay.
There is a timeline associated with it.
I guessed that there would be, but.
Yeah, it does talk about that, the decision should be made collaboratively before the start of the
School year.
The school year, or the fiscal year, so, if we are able to approve, that would be, keep us in alignment with the timeline.
Well, you guys ready to take a vote?
Yep.
Yep, still
Okay.
would go for that one.
All in favor then of accepting the exhibit CBI-E as our evaluation tool for Dr. Dorner, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, or, oh, I already said that. Any opposed? All right, so that was a unanimous vote. All right, and that brings us to item number 11, which is to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Motion on the table,